after case. Coughs due to smoking disappear.
Oh, look at mine. It smells like gum. Yummy.
The tobacco industry spends nearly $1 million an hour marketing products.
Children picking tobacco are exposed to toxic pesticides.
You're just like your body wants to give up.
They told us they were utterly exhausted, most working 50 to 60 hours a week, often in extreme heat. Some said their employers didn't give them drinking water.
The tobacco manufacturers have lied about the risks of their products. They have lied about targeting children.
Hey guys, it's me, Lavender here, and today I wanted to talk about the subject of the cigarette and tobacco industry, the pure evil files. So let's get started into this, YouTube video political topic. So first off, capitalism, the system, puts profits over the lives of everything, including animals, people, and Mother Earth herself. That is just a pure fact. People always just want to only say the porn industry or the tobacco cigarette industries only do this, but no, it's all of them, including them. It's all the capitalism companies and industries that put profits over the lives of everything. It's not just the tobacco industry, and it's not just the porn industry. It's all the capitalism industries. They're all exploitative and all that. So on to tobacco industry's effect on the environment and the environmental toll that cigarettes cause on the environment. Tobacco degrades soil, threatens biodiversity, causes biodiversity loss, climate change, and uses pesticide and fertilizers, exposing farm workers to hazardous chemicals. 90% of tobacco farming is in low to middle income countries, with the top being China, Brazil, and India. Tobacco results in global deforestation from farmland and wood burning. Estimated 11.4 million metric tons of wood are burned to cure tobacco every year. And estimated annual emissions produced by the tobacco industry manufacturing process are equal to emissions of roughly 3 million transatlantic flights. In a single year, cigarette smoke contributes to thousands of metric tons of cancer-causing chemicals into the atmosphere and the air, other toxins, and greenhouse gases globally. Tobacco and cigarette waste contribute to substantial amounts of litter and waste and leach toxic chemicals into the environment, into the water supply, into the soil, etc. Cigarette burns are cigarette butts are the largest single type of litter by count, and their filters do not biodegenerate. Additionally, tobacco product packaging creates 2 million tons of waste per year. Products like cigarettes, smokeless tobacco, chewing tobacco, e-cigarettes also add to the build-up of plastic pollution. Cigarette filters contain microplastics and make up the second highest form of plastic pollution worldwide. Now on to the health effects that cigarettes and the tobacco industry causes. Cigarette smoking is responsible for more than 480,000 deaths per year in the United States alone, including more than 41,000 deaths resulting from secondhand smoke exposure. This is about 1 in 5 deaths annually, or 1,300 deaths every day. Marketing tactics are deceptive and gloss over the fact that tobacco is the leading cause of preventable death in the United States. The big tobacco industry pay doctors, for the advertising, propaganda campaigns for the cigarette products and, chewing tobacco products. When people trust doctors with their health and, the doctors are smoking cigarettes and recommending types of cigarettes, the cigarette and tobacco industry are working with Big Pharma to keep us sick, along with the food industry, to keep us sick and be dependent on their drugs. The tobacco industry, along with fast, unhealthy food, that these fast food companies sell, such as McDonald's, these, tobacco industries, fast food places, and all that, they sell you a toxic, biohazardous, radioactive product and artery-clogging stuff that affects your health. While Big Pharma profits all off this and off the sickness that the product, causes, and they sell you the drugs to you that are so-called to treat you, but Big Pharma creates customers, not cures. Whatever Big Pharma and the big tobacco industries and the war on drugs, there's a reason why marijuana is illegal, even though it's safe, because they don't want competition against them so they can rank in all the massive capitalism profits and money. Smoking during pregnancy can cause tissue damage in the unborn baby, particularly in the lung and brain, and some studies suggest a link between maternal smoking and cleft lip. Studies also suggest a relationship between tobacco miscarriages and stillbirths. Workers who plant, and harvest and cultivate tobacco and tobacco plants are at risk of suffering from a form of nicotine poisoning known as green tobacco sickness. A landmark human rights watch study on child labor and tobacco published in 2014 found that nearly 3/4 of the 141 children they interviewed, all between the ages of 7 to 17 years old, reported serious health complications and symptoms, including nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, headaches, dizziness, skin rashes, difficulty breathing, and irritation to their eyes and mouths while working in the fields of tobacco plants and harvesting them. A victim of capitalism said that the clinic they see a lot of children with allergies on their skin from the pesticides that they use during the tobacco process, and harvesting. They're the world's worst not for wearing gloves. They don't really wear gloves, the victims of capitalism don't. She said these skin issues come from the way their skin reacts to tobacco leaves and the pesticides that are used in the process. That and the respiratory issues, we see a lot of breathing problems. In 2006, the American Cancer Society and other plaintiffs won a major court case against Big Tobacco. Judge Gladys Kelser found tobacco companies guilty of lying to the American public about the deadly effects of cigarettes and secondhand smoke for, years upon years. Cigarette smoke contains a poisonous gas called carbon monoxide. You can't smell or see it. Carbon monoxide stops your blood from carrying as much oxygen. This means your heart must work harder and your organs don't get the amount of oxygen they truly need. Other things in these toxic products these industries push is nicotine, which is an addictive drug chemical. Hydrogen cyanide, how cyanide is dangerous. Formaldehyde, lead, arsenic, pneumonia, radioactive elements, benzene, you see this in like rat poison and stuff too, so basically, this is proof that Big Pharma and these industries are working together to keep people sick so they can make capitalism profits. The tobacco industry has promoted low-harm versions of their products since day one. However, light, low-tar filtered cigarettes are not any less dangerous. This is just all propaganda. So when it comes to the tobacco industry and cigarette ad and commercial, propaganda, disinformation campaigns, they're very similar to, Big Oil. Big Oil uses the same, pretty much science propaganda and fake news to push their products. In 1954, the tobacco industry paid to publish the frank statement to cigarette smokers in hundreds of U.S. newspapers around the United States and America. It is stated that public health was the industry's concern above all others and promised a variety of good faith changes. What followed were decades of deceit and lies and actions that cost millions of lives. Well, these big, capitalism industries ranked in the capitalism billion-dollar profits. Again, they paid doctors, to advertise their products because everyone, trusts their doctors with their health, and if they see their doctor, smoking cigarettes, they must think it's healthy. And the same thing goes with Big Pharma. The Big Pharma's paying off all these doctors and stuff, because the pharmaceutical industry, they're just legal drug dealers pretty much. Tobacco advertisements and promotions are on displayed front, center, and back in convenience stores, gas stations, and other retail locations. The vast majority of the industry's marketing campaign dollars are spent in retail stores. Big Tobacco pushes their message by placing big ads in magazines and publications since they can't and no longer can advertise on TV. But before that, there was a product placement on TV and movies and TV shows. An example of this was the 1962 Flintstones cartoon commercial selling Winston cigarettes. Smooth cartoon characters such as Joe Camel were deployed to appeal to young audiences and people who were impressionable age. Cartoons became so effective at addicting kids to tobacco, they were prohibited as part of a historical tobacco master settlement agreement. 46 states and the District of Columbia reached out with 5 largest tobacco companies in 1998. Big Tobacco has a long history of targeting black communities with predatory marketing ad campaigns, and its racist tactics continue to this very day. These tactics have serious consequences. We don't smoke this shit, we just sell it. We reserve the right to smoke for the young, poor, and the black and stupid. That's just one tobacco industry executive quote that can be found in the Truth Tobacco Industry Documents Library and is featured in Between the Lies. Several studies have also found a greater number of tobacco advertisements and a larger presence of tobacco advertising in African American neighborhoods. The same could be said for liquor, alcohol stores, because private prisons want people to be locked up for profit and prison slavery is legal. So I really truly think they're all conspiring all together. I don't think that's a conspiracy theory either. African Americans have the higher death rates from tobacco-related causes compared to other racial and ethnic groups, with more than 39,000 dying from tobacco-related cancers each year. The health consequences are especially severe now as COVID-19, and the pandemic was going on, which also disproportionately affect Black Americans and can carry a greater risk of dying from COVID-19 or other severe illnesses from tobacco users that use tobacco. So the tobacco industry, just like all capitalism industries, is compliant in grooming children and kids with their marketing ad campaigns. The big tobacco industry has spent big bucks on getting kids to start smoking and get addicted so they can make mega capitalism profits and rake in all the money. The truth is the only way tobacco industry can make up for adults who die from the tobacco-related disease is to have new customers, aka the kids, and have them start smoking. Every day, close to 100 kids and teens who had previously been occasional cigarette smokers became regularly daily chain smokers. Big tobacco industry pushes their message by placing ads, big ones, in magazines and publications that are popular with kids. The more exposure adolescents get and teens have to tobacco advertising, the more likely they are to start smoking, which, maximizes big tobacco's and big pharma's profits. One 1991 study found Joe Camel was, as a mascot, he was at least well known as Mickey Mouse among 3 to 6-year-olds. Calling youth their replacement smokers, tobacco companies callously and aggressively continue to advertise to youth because they know they are killing their current customers and they need to be replaced because all they care about is money. Tobacco industries have decades of experience marketing their toxic products to kids and teens, grooming tactics, in the 80s, 90s, and early to mid-2000s. They would call this, thing that they were called Candy Cigarettes, where they would basically groom kids to be like their parents, but they're candy cigarettes, so when they get old enough they can smoke real cigarettes. Placing their products in cartoons, normalizing their appearance to kids, and grooming as usual. These, tobacco industries, also groom kids in the way of, flavoring, the cigarettes a certain, flavor with, sweet flavors and, sugary flavors, knowing kids are, still growing and, how kids like sugar, in the flavors of, let's say, vanilla, cherry, chocolate, blueberry, strawberry, etc. Even flavors from popular children's cereals. The use of flavors in cigarettes, with the glaring exception of menthol cigarettes, was prohibited in 2009, but flavored cigars, e-cigarettes, and other tobacco products are still made and available and sold with candy and fruit flavorings. An infamous quote from the tobacco industry document gives insight on how they view recruitment. Young adult smokers have been the critical factor in the growth and decline of every major brand and company over the last 50 years. They will continue to be just as important to brands as companies in the future for two simple reasons. The renewal of the market stems almost entirely from 18-year-old smokers. No more than 5% of smokers start after the age of 24, and the brand loyalty of 18-year-old smokers far outweighs the tendency to switch with age. Brands/companies which fail to attract their fair share of younger adult smokers face an uphill battle. They must achieve net switching gains every year to merely hold share. Younger adult smokers are the only source of replacement smokers. If younger adults turn away from smoking, the industry must decline, just as population which does not give birth will eventually dwindle. I'm going to be talking about more about child labor on this topic when it comes to the industry's treatment of the employees. And here are some of the tobacco industry's treatment of employees. Not all the treatment, but just some of the way they treat the workers as a whole. Most of the tobacco industry's early financial success is alleged to have been due in a large fact in part due to the free labor and exploitation from enslaved black people as early as the mid-1600s. Tobacco merchants in England and other countries, etc., became involved in the production of tobacco on Virginia plantations. Today, tobacco leaf production is increasing in Africa and other countries, and the system seems designed to keep African tobacco farmers in debt and in poverty. With the current contract system, farmers receive loans from tobacco leaf companies for supplies like seeds and fertilizer, with an agreement that tobacco leaf company will buy the farmer's product, but the farmers aren't allowed to set their selling prices. Tobacco leaf companies decide whether they'll pay for the leaves after repaying their loans and factoring in labor costs. Farmers often end up in huge debts. Workers who plant, cultivate, and harvest tobacco are at risk of suffering again from the nicotine poisoning known as green tobacco sickness. Tobacco companies are just your typical capitalism industries. Tobacco farming gives its profits to the industry, but gives very low incomes to tobacco growers or farmers themselves. An investigation by The Guardian, reporters found that in Maui, some families were paid nothing until the tobacco crop was sold after harvest, and the families were sometimes forced to take their children out of school to work in the tobacco fields. This is no different than Cargill and Nestle profiting from chocolate, slavery via child, coca slavery. It's basically the same thing, but with tobacco. A victim of capitalism, Ingrid recounted how the lack of water in the fields meant that when you want to take a break for food or, water or whatever, there wasn't always water for you to wash your hands off, so you would eat with your hands covered in pesticides and tobacco. Find some water or just eat, she said. We all know pesticides like Monsanto's cause cancer, so this is highly problematic. And of course, Big Pharma is going to profit all this. A landmark Human Rights Watch study on child labor and tobacco published in 2014 found that nearly 3/4 of the 141 children they interviewed, all between the ages of 7 to 17, reported serious symptoms including nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite, headaches, dizziness, skin rashes, difficulty breathing, and irritation to their eyes and mouths in the fields of working tobacco plants. The study also found that many children are exposed to pesticides and other dangers as well as nicotine. Child tobacco workers often labor over 50 to 60 hours a week in extreme heat, use dangerous tools and machinery, lift heavy loads, and climb onto the rafters of barns several stories tall, risking serious injuries and falls.